2nd. But before we get into our program, we're going to do an invocation and pledge of allegiance. I'm going to ask Holly Winter, if you would, please give us an invocation.
Encourage each individual in this room to embrace our obligation. Let those life obligations be evident through our actions. Creator and sustainer of all that is or will ever be, accept our thanks for this day and help us bless it. We ask that you guide and direct our club as leaders in our actions. Amen.
Thank you. Let's join in the pledge. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You may be seated. Kelsey, we have a number of guests with us today. I'm going to ask Kelsey to come up and speak.
Good afternoon, everyone. It is my pleasure to introduce our guests. Please stand. Our first guest is Thomas Britt, guest on Trip Bank with Star. And lastly, we have Darby Pippins, guest of J. Banks. Welcome.
So Tommy, we're going to assign Susan Ferguson to your membership drive. Was that okay?
I've already been trying.
Okay. Birthdays and wedding anniversary to mention. So Kim Boatwright's birthday was May 13th. And then Randy, 49 years? 49. That's fantastic. Congratulations. So a couple of things in the life of the club I want to mention. We had a good meeting this morning with Steve Boatner and Connie Hensler. They're off to a great start with program ideas. But I want to challenge each of you. I promise you, everybody in here has one good program. So I want to challenge you. Take a minute, send an idea to Connie and Steve, and they have a team that will pursue that and follow up on it. So please, just take a minute to do that. It's going to make for a stronger year if you do. Want to let everybody know if you need a makeup, we're going to have a board meeting right after this meeting. So that'll be about 1:05, 1:10 or so. Our annual banquet, just as a reminder, is going to be on June 13th. And if you haven't RSVP'd, where's Cheryl? Cheryl, let Cheryl know that she needs to collect those RSVPs. We need a head count, and we'd love to have you there. Oak Fusky is just a beautiful facility. If you haven't been there, you definitely need to plan to go. Let's do Happy Dollars. What are we happy about today? What's going on in the community? What's going on in the lives of our members? Okay.
Randy Albert. Grandbaby number 8 is now graduate of my alma mater, Clemson. Alex Bowie finished magna cum laude in biomedical engineering last week. And I'm so happy he's going to take a gap year before trying to get medical school. So if anybody breaks a leg or something he might need, he's going to be in the team this summer with the LaGrange Ambulance Service.
Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, well, I'm happy I'm a Rotarian, and I want to tell you why. I went to a true family connection meeting, and there were a number of people there that run literacy programs. Fruit Reads was there, and these folks were just so appreciative and showed so much gratitude for the money that we gave to help literacy efforts. I was just honored to be a Rotarian, and I said, I'm going to come to the club tomorrow and take the podium and let everybody else know that what we did really mattered and really got some traction on helping literacy in our county.
Thank you, Matt. Holly.
Yes, hi, I'm up here with John. We are putting a plug in for the blood drive on May 29th. This is our 3rd out of 4 blood drives, and our goal is 100 units of blood for our 100 years. We need 31 people to sign up for this May 29th blood drive. We're at 10, so Glad we're at 10, but if we can get a few more to sign up, we'd really love to bring in 100 units of blood in our 4 blood drive. So the next one will be in August. I think the 4th one's going to be in early August. So thank you so much for signing up. Sorry, what?
What's your big day? What's the day?
May 31st.
May 31st, it's coming.
Here's for the same thing. Mike mentioned it. Thank you, Mike. There are pledge cards on each of the tables with the correct dates of our founding. Thank you, Susan. Please consider sponsoring a team of runners. Shooting to sponsor all of the schools. That's where they learn literacy. If we can have each school sponsored, and then I reach out to the school and say, sponsor another 5 runners. So please, everybody. And $10,000 for my daughter who's in Florence, setting up an easel on the arm. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. The trip kind of put me on the spot here. I do need to acknowledge the fact that Friday will be mine and Debbie's 49th wedding anniversary. And it's even a little longer than that. We first dated when she was 15 and I was 17 in 1975. So we've actually been together, 1970, I'm sorry. We've actually been together for 54 years, almost continuously. There are a few bumps in the road in that. That's fine. But fortunately, she stayed with me, and we will celebrate 49 years on Friday. But thank you. That's fine. Congratulations.
I have $2 One is business. The bank is happy to co-sponsor with the chamber a financial series. The first one is tomorrow, and it's on business literacy. It'll be 11:30 at the chamber. The second $1 is from my good friend Tommy Britt. And I don't know why he's not in here every Wednesday. So get on me.
So I guess want to have a happy dollar for my neighbor. He was having a serious cardiac event last week, and it turned out he just needed to have his gallbladder out. So he was a little bit disappointed when we were taking out all the gallbladders in town. But really happy for him that it was not so serious. He's home recovering right now. Any other announcements for the good of the group? Or if not, I just want to say is, we are extremely fortunate to have, Collins here today is one thing, but just from, have the well-star program becoming huge. That's not what we're fortunate for. We have extremely quality in the rooms in Troop King. Sometimes I think we take that for granted. Wellstar, West Georgia, frequently is the top performer in the Wellstar system and compares extremely well with the other top hospitals in the state. Local, we're certainly just lucky to have such a great hospital and strong leadership in Poland. So I'm going to ask him to come up and introduce our program.
Thank you, Trip, and thank you for those kind words. So today's speaker, I could talk about the hospital too, but today's speaker is a little more broad about that. So about 4 years ago, Wellstar started having conversations with the state of Georgia. I'm not sure who started the conversations, but ultimately what wound up happening was an affiliation agreement with Medical College of Georgia. And Wellstar entered into a 4-year arrangement to manage their Augusta University Hospital, which is the flagship hospital for the Medical College of Georgia. But they have got much more than that, and so there's actually local impact, because whether you knew this or not, Roosevelt Warm Springs Institute is also part of Augusta University Hospital, so it's part of Wellstar as well too. So there's certainly broad-based initiatives, and then there's local initiatives throughout the state of Georgia. So our speaker today is Eric Gerard. Eric is actually our Vice President of Rehab Services for all of Wellstar. His closest is Doug, just looking over his bio. We actually have 4 inpatient rehab facilities, 6 wound care centers, and over 90 outpatient rehab centers throughout all of Wellstar, throughout the state of Georgia. And Eric has been very instrumental in this whole process, especially with Roosevelt Warm Springs, but through the whole merger of Wellstar and MCG. So we're honored to have him here today. Now, Eric is, his path and my path are parallel in many different respects. He got his bachelor's degree in physical therapy from University of South Alabama, got his master's in healthcare administration from UAB, and his doctorate in education from the University of St. Augustine. He has been in a number of different facilities throughout Tennessee and Georgia. And he and his lovely wife have 3 children, and we are excited to have him here today. Eric, I'll turn it over to you.
Brought my laptop up just so I can keep
Okay.
up with my own notes.
Okay.
If it's a little advanced, that'll be great. You might be able to see the slides.
Yep.
So thanks again for the introduction, Colin, and I appreciate that. As a former Rotarian, is there such a thing as a former Rotarian? I've been maybe once, always, but I know the good work you all do in your community, and I love it. In fact, I told my wife that I was going to be speaking to you today. Love for my wife. But I know the work that you all do. As a PT, a physical therapist by trade, I certainly know and appreciate, the world-changing activities that Rotary has had over 100 years. And not just in ending polio, but in all of the community impacts that you've made that have, accumulating fashion really changed the world for the better. My first clinical rotation as a physical therapist was at the Rotary Rehab Hospital in Mobile, Alabama. And established literally 100 years ago to fight polio and rehabilitate those who were stricken by that, by the effects of that disease. So I really do appreciate your continued efforts in this community and around the world. So if you go ahead and just, this one I have to check because Coleman and Tommy might get a survey at some point on you. So I have to make sure that I get mission, vision, values for Wellstar. I will tell you though, that this is, even though my job is kind of coordinating rehab services, we've got 100+ sites of care. You need anchoring philosophies and values, and I'm proud of this. I've been with Wellstar for almost 2 years, but sometimes values and mission statements are words on the screen. Sometimes they're a culture that you promote throughout the entire organization. That's something that I found to be the case. Really appreciate the fact that patients are at the center of everything that we do. Go ahead to the next slide. This is just a quick summary. I'm sure you've seen similar infographics around Wellstar. These numbers continue to change and continue to grow. And if you've seen them jump from the last time I've looked at them, much of that has to do with the partnership that we're going to talk about today with Augusta University Health System and Medical College of Georgia. We are up to 11 hospitals, as Coleman mentioned, 91 rehab centers and counting, 5 health parks and counting. I pulled this last week and it's already out of date on the number of urgent care locations. I think we had been 5 are announced that last week. So over 30,000 healthcare professionals engaged across the state in providing healthcare. And again, in terms of those locations, you're probably familiar with those, but our reach has extended east to Augusta. And we'll talk a lot about that, of course, as we go forward. And for the West Georgia market, because you also see Meriwether County shaded in this for now because of Roosevelt. So the partnership itself, what is it? It's probably best just to talk terminology for me. Many of you are probably well acquainted with what Augusta University is, but of course it does include considerable health education. So that includes allied health professions, the College of Dental Medicine, graduate studies, graduate medical education, nursing, and the Medical College of Georgia. MCG, you may or may not know, of course, our only public medical school in Georgia, and it's the 13th oldest in the country, 6th largest. So Augusta is graduating over 300 new physicians every year, and is training over almost 600 residents in 51 different specialties every year. So it's a considerable academic enterprise. Now, Augusta University Health System, of course, is the patient care arm of Augusta University. So picture coming alongside with that academic and research piece, this would be the third part of the mission in terms of patient care. And then that is the the change, I guess, if you will, related to Wellstar's involvement. Augusta University Health System consists of several programs. I went somewhere near, I think it's 80 outpatient physician practices and clinics that's scattered all over. The anchor there is the large 478 bed teaching and safety net hospital. It's also a level 1 trauma center there in Augusta. Children's Hospital of Georgia, you'll occasionally hear the acronym CHOG, is within the same campus as the medical center. It's 154 bed pediatrics, includes a level 2 pediatric trauma program. And then of interest to West Georgia, of course, is Roosevelt Warm Springs Rehab and Long-Term Acute Care. We'll talk a little bit more about that as we go along. I thought I would just spend a few minutes talking about Antonio. Talk about as Roosevelt and Antonio showed up. Yeah, couldn't have timed that perfect. So one of the things that you'll notice when you look at press releases, all those kinds of things, what I can tell you is absolutely the case, is this statewide focus in terms of the Augusta relationship. From the jump, this was about continuing and extending collaborations with rural hospitals across Georgia, increasing access through digital health services and the digital operating model that you sometimes hear about with Wellstar, finding ways to get care to patients as opposed to patients to care, because sometimes that's just really hard to do. There's a significant investment in terms of facilities and infrastructure. $800 million over 10 years is the commitment there. I think 200 million of that is sort of earmarked for the main medical center there at MCG. But it does include funding for a new hospital in Columbia County. Augusta Health System already had this certificate of need for that hospital, but we're not going to be able to fund it independently. So that's part of this process. In fact, Friday, several of us will be in Augusta looking at continued planning and programming for that new hospital in Columbia County. And then I guess the third piece of the objective, advancing medical education, research as well, growing the pipeline of physicians. And I've got a slide coming up that'll talk about the shortage that we see across the state. And it's pretty clear why there's a need for this. Again, taking that and extending it out into our communities across the state with new care models, finding ways to benefit patient communities all the way across the state. So that's the objective. This is from a slide Antonio recognizes, because Antonio and I, along with Ross Silman, did a talk at the American Hospital Association, February? And the focus of our talk was on post-acute care in rural communities. But one of the takeaways was that because there is such a physician shortage, post-acute providers and many others have to really stand the gap. The graphic itself is kind of striking, right? When you look at the number of counties without internal medicine services, for example, or without a pediatrician within that county, it's really pretty striking. When you look at specialty by specialty, we have 90 of our 159 counties in Georgia don't have a psychiatrist within the county borders. 82 without an OBGYN. So you can see how important it is that we continue to extend these training programs to cover significant portions of the state, right? I gave some of these numbers already, but this is just to show Medical College of Georgia is trying to work on this from a statewide perspective. They have set up a number of regional campuses that allow for their third and fourth year medical students to be out in those communities. As I mentioned, 300 medical students every year graduating, becoming physicians, but 600 of those being trained as through postgraduate medical education in specialties. Now, I'm sure some could look at this as maybe it depends on the half glass full, half glass empty philosophy, but when I saw 50% of graduates remaining in Georgia to practice, I thought that's not enough, right? Now, Augusta, of course, does sit on the South Carolina border, and I'm sure that we lose a lot of those, but the idea here is to, again, place those physicians in communities across the state, help them get established in practice, meet those needs, and then keep them here. So, There are a number of other training programs at Augusta University too. The model of rehab, of course, I'm very interested in PT and OT and speech language pathologists and those kinds of things. These are programs that are up and running. The speech language pathology program is actually brand new. I think this fall, Augusta accepts its first class for speech language pathology. But again, we have needs across the state for these kinds of services. You can see radiation therapy, respiratory therapy, nuclear medicine, all of these are there. And then of course, on the nursing side, Augusta has a very strong nursing program that will help us fill those needs across the state as well. Our jobs as operators is of course to connect those to clinical affiliations and rotations that will allow for new students to find their place, right? And we hope, of course, that that's within Wellstar where it can be, but to obviously serve the greater needs of the state. So what does this mean in terms of local impact? I think that's probably of some interest. Of course, it's going to mean more training sites for physicians and nurses and professionals, as I just mentioned. Getting primary care physicians as well as specialists into the region is of course, a key piece of this as well. Leveraging that digital operating model, again, to provide access to care, whether that's through telehealth or other new and novel mechanisms to get care to patients. Those are all possibilities. One of the things that I've been most impressed with Roosevelt is that they already have a very strong telehealth program. So they're connecting to specialists in Augusta from Warm Springs on a regular basis to provide specialty care for patients that are hospitalized there. So learning, developing that and extending that where it makes sense is all part of this, right? Ultimately, trying to increase access to care for West Georgia communities. And to some degree, it means extending and expanding those services to new ventures like Roosevelt Warm Springs. Now, Roosevelt is nowhere near new, right? It's been around for almost 100 years. It is a cool place. If you've never been on that campus, we're going to have opportunities for you to do that in the months to come. There's a vast campus there that's operated by the Georgia Vocational Rehab Agency. It includes a couple of different clinical programs, if you will head to the next slide there. So you have two hospitals on that campus. They're actually co-located, connected, if you will, through a corridor. One is an inpatient rehab hospital, and the other is a long-term hospital. So these are Medicare terms that describe specific patients with ongoing care needs after being hospitalized in a traditional medical center or hospital, right? Rehab, of course, is a service that many are familiar with. But when you're talking about intensive rehabilitation as a hospitalized patient, you're talking about patients that are typically recovering from stroke, brain injury, spinal cord injury, amputee, other complex medical issues that have left them significantly debilitated. Really, really important piece of the continuum to have available. Roosevelt represents the only rehab beds between Newnan and Columbus. So there's a significant portion of West Georgia that needs access to those services here, and they do a wonderful job with it. On the long-term acute care side, these are a little bit different. These are patients that are typically needing continued intensive care, right? So these are meant to really offload the intensive care units of the hospitals. A lot of that ends up being ventilator-dependent patients that are continuing to progress toward off of that. Again, Roosevelt probably represents the only LTAC beds between Atlanta and Columbus. So again, much needed service. And as Colin's already alluded, through the partnership with Augusta University Health System, these are programs that are now part of Wellstar Health System. I've been thrilled to be involved in some of those conversations, getting to know that team. The physicians and providers that are there are so strong and so committed to their patients. It's really, really fun to see. Obviously, because Warm Springs isn't close to a significant population base, I was just amazed at the breadth of the referral pool. So patients are coming into Warm Springs from not just all over Georgia. We get requests and referrals from the entire region. Many of those in really catastrophic situations that they need consistent quality care to allow them to progress back towards some level of independence at home, hopefully. But yeah, we are drawing patients from all over. It's been really fun to see and connect with the case management departments at referring hospitals to see what their needs are, what's Roosevelt doing great, where do we have opportunities to bolster and fill out that continuum a bit in terms of both services and the capacity constraints that we have as well. Both these hospitals can accommodate significant numbers of patients, and we look forward to building and maximizing that. In terms of integration, obviously we got leadership there with some intentional connectedness to West Georgia Medical Center. And the point there being, Roosevelt Palm Springs is here, right? And needs that level of support, needs that level of connection to what will almost certainly end up being, its primary referral sources within the WellStar system. So that's been fun to see that develop. Medical staff recruitment, specialist expansions, there are calls and activities happening even now to identify physicians and other providers to fill those needs at Roosevelt as we continue to grow. We've already seen some benefits over 7.5 months in. I think our go live in terms of flipping the switch on the affiliation was September 1st, 2023, but we're already seeing significant increases in the number of patients that are being cared for at Roosevelt. Don't quote me on the percentages, but I was looking at LTAC admissions just through April, and I want to say it's 20% plus growth year over year already. And we're just really getting started. On the rehab side, we're also seeing positive trends there in terms of getting patients to this level of care that is so desperately needed. Obviously, recruitment and retention of nurses and therapists and all those things. Tom has been great to help us connect with recruiters and folks who are based here, right? I think prior to the partnership, positions that were posted for Roosevelt were posted in Augusta. And how many of you are looking for Augusta newspapers for job postings, right? So just getting that done has increased our ability to get staff involved and connected. Obviously, we're working towards officially onboarding those existing team members into WellStar. That takes some time planning. You can imagine job titles and all those kinds of things so that they can be brought over. And then a big piece of this that's taking a lot of my time is developing the electronic medical record. We use Epic across the health system and getting that ready for Roosevelt. Getting Roosevelt ready for it is a significant jump forward from a technological aspect. But it will also really expedite both referral follow-up and visibility through the medical record of all the different clinical aspects that are needing to be understood fully as patients transition into post-acute settings like this. I blew through a lot of information there. You never know how long that's going to take, but I wanted to make sure that we left a little bit of time. Coleman and Tommy obviously told me that they would fill in any gaps for us to stop. So I'll attempt to questions. And I'm going to get some of these guys for
Yeah, so there was just a very unique camp in the grounds of Programs Institute, Camp Dream, for differently able children, adults, and teens. And I'm wondering if y'all are gonna put some resources into that, because it was diamond in the rough for people who couldn't get to camp, and it's hard to stay, folks in wheelchairs, folks with other mobility needs.
Yeah, so I've heard of Camp Dream. I've not been privy to see it, but I have heard of it. Of course, GVRA continues to have students training and learning job skills and those kinds of things on the campus of the Institute, even today. So I can't speak to current state of that particular function, but I can tell you our intent is to tap into every single resource to meet the needs of that community. Obviously, we've got to build a dependable referral stream and all those kinds of things for our hospital operation, but we're going to have to partner with the rest of the institute there to make sure we're taking advantage of that. Even just from a public knowledge and awareness, it's the right thing to do. Right? It's the right thing to do.
Other questions? What?
Yeah, the partnering with, Roosevelt Warm Springs, I can see how that might facilitate recruitment of an area such as orthopedic surgery, say, urology, maybe. But then you get into areas like internal medicine, general surgery, OBGYN. How can this facilitate the recruitment of physicians that not only we get to come to a range, but that we get to remain here for their practice?
Right. Yeah, you're right. Roosevelt is going to have a little bit narrower clinical scope, and I will just add one specialty to that is maybe a couple. Neurology and pulmonology are two big ones for the LTAC and for the rehab piece. Inpatient intensive rehabilitation is becoming very neurologic heavy program these days. It's definitely going to help with those. But you're right. I mean, the idea again is to tie to those academic opportunities. How do we point and get hooks in some of those clinical affiliations that would bring providers here beyond what Roosevelt has?
Yeah, so it's not so much Roosevelt, but the affiliation with Augusta. So we are starting a residency program. So those folks will do their residency. Obviously, a lot of the programs, cardiology, stockology, so hopefully a good experience here will bring additional positions back. The affiliation with NCP is our main work for that. We also have been asked by Worship and have Worship has 3 campuses now. We have a campus in Columbus. We have third-year residency. I'm a third-year student, rotating a year doing their clinical rotations here. We've been asked by all to do pediatric rotations with their students. That's like work from very complicated physician assistant. So all of that to say is that affiliation with MCG has just really expanded the breadth and robustness of what we do from the graduate education standpoint. Will we need all of them? No, but I think we're experiencing our hospital. We think we'll bring that pipeline. I'm 60 years old. I'm sure it has a great way to do that for the future. We're trying to make
Other things, in 1995, I moved to the range from Macon, where I had been in psychiatric practice for about 20 years. I joined a group of 7 good psychiatrists here in the range. And West Georgia Medical Center had their first-rate psychiatric inpatient unit and a connected addiction unit that was as good as any in the nation. We don't have any of that now. The fact that it's reminded us how stretched it is to have psychiatrists in this area and really through the whole thing. We are in trouble here for not having enough of that very important. I can't tell you how many times I have no idea how many people have asked me for recommendations for health and mental health. And safety walking. I don't know. Please keep that high.
Absolutely, absolutely. Our service line leader for psychiatry and behavioral health is Dr. Ryan Brashears. He's based in Marietta, of course, but we have it's high on the list. I think we have to supplement it with the advanced practice providers as well in that service. But it is a need.
And we did just recruit psychiatrists.
Good to know.
Yeah. So there you go.
Yes, sir.
What of this may be more goal, I respect yours. If I roll into the emergency room at West Georgia, with major trauma, to what level 1 trauma center will I wind up? Is there an existing agreement where that transfer is expedited and so on?
You're saying that probably the things from here. It depends on what it is. If you were in a major car wreck, they're probably gonna fire you ready. If you come in with anything significant other than major 25 injuries, you're probably gonna go.
And I'm talking about, where I've got an acute belly, I've got fractures.
Yeah.
I've got, bad looking chest x-ray.
I'm sorry. It's a very interesting question because when I got it 5.5 years ago, I said, my goal was to be able to take care of 80% of the years. And I was told very quickly by Wellstar, that's not good. The reason it's not good enough is that you can see like 90% here. There are no beds available. I mean, all the hospitals in the are full. And so even if you have maybe a problem, we can get you up there, but it's probably kind of people, you're waiting for bed. And so it's a major process. We just got a level 4 trauma designation. All of these graduate medical finished programs that we're bringing in level 3, we need level 2 trauma center. But we know we've got to rank that up. But for true level 1, there's 3 or 4 in the entire state. So there's not many level 1.
Keystone level 1.
Keystone is level 1. Yeah, Keystone, 3, Northeast Georgia. But there's not very many.
Yeah, Augusta's, yeah.
And Augusta, yeah.
Of the students coming out of medical school, what's the biggest reason or barrier that they not go to the school?
I hear a lot of different stories. Go, you probably.
They're single.
I'm a guest here, I wasn't sure I could say it, but that's a consideration. I deal with the same thing, just, for the allied health professions as we're recruiting, obviously those with a natural connection, are interested, and try to get into those. I was at Roosevelt just earlier this morning, talking to our director of rehab services there, and she's just taken a student who's home in Thomaston. I think she's a University of North Georgia student for PT, I believe. PT or at any rate, getting connections there and actually maximizing every opportunity for those with the natural connections. But bringing those others in is about this. It's about community and showing what's available. And I think that falls on all of us. Having open arms policy and I know you all do this.
Right. So that's something you said, what's when you pick a company, it's very simple, like anybody else. You gotta have somewhere to live, somewhere that's gonna pay you, and you gotta have somewhere to spend your money. And so we're working really hard on that range. But Holmes says something about West Georgia is becoming, or is level 4, that's trauma. So from a non-medical colleague, explain to us what makes level 4, 3, 2, and 1 very quickly. I know you didn't know you were going to quiz for this, but I heard you say that graduate medical expertise contribute to level 4.
So level 1 is basically your high school trauma. So you have concerts on call. And those are typically residents. So that's what it's very good to say. Level 2 trauma is you have residents and transfers standby, they're available, pretty much there with the management of the population, but not quite as specific as the academic. So 3 trauma is basically you have certain, and we're advancing this, but we could be level 3 trauma center right now. We have 24/7 certain availability. We're actually implementing certain where surgeons, our local surgeons, not going to take all the time for employed surgeons in the hospital, the ER in particular, and it really has to do, you also have back regular so as we go through that, we can go to level 3. And level 4 is basically what we have always been. It's just that we have the comp designation. And there's some kind of some areas of availability of radio services, certain. But we didn't really advance that much to where we've been to get that level 4 comp designation. But we haven't been significant level 3. is, I mean, most general surgeons don't. It's getting to this point, which our unit is probably going to do 61,000 yards this year. We're seeing 600 patients. The range is growing significantly. We're seeing some fairly sick patients, and it happens all too often. When I'm walking into the hospital, 37 in the morning, and I see a general surgeon coming out to take all night long. So we're definitely seeing it, which is why we have to make sure to we're in contact with it. So it's all part of the advancement of healthcare, but it's limited resources. Like you're pointing out, there's a finite number of surgeons out there, a finite number of walking specialists. So this affiliation of medical knowledge in order to all these other schools is going to be paramount with the growth of the brain, because it's going to allow us to bring a lot of additional medical specialties. Products is right there. We are in the industry center in town, we want to see education. So the more we can do with us, healthcare services.
Is your recruiting positions, in order to try to get people back into the rural areas, is there any way to give some deference to those people, recruit them from the rural areas who may go back?
So, yeah, you try to find those connections, absolutely. And I think one of the things that's affiliated around just greater transparency earlier in the process, right? So as students are brought into the program, we'll be able to be connected with them. So literally Wednesday of next week at College of Allied Health, I'll be there talking to both current students and new grads in PT and OT, probably PA, physician assistant program. Again, just trying to find out where are you from? What is your interest? Because there are so few training facilities around, you end up finding that they come from all over, just like this guy from Thomaston.
So 100% of the medicine, so that helps us significantly. And because they're more interested in doing rotations in the rural area, that helps us. And all of the programs also do. So both of those programs, I mean, the reality is I have a better chance of capturing somebody out of Mercer or all the government.
Yeah. There used to be a state of Georgia scholarship program that was for people who would go to med school and then sign up to go to a rural area for a certain number of years. Julian Dunner used to be on the board.
Yeah, and they did do a program.
Any other questions?
I'm thrilled to, throw this, this grenade up into the crowd and get all the questions. Thank you to Coleman for this. You all know this, but the leadership team here at the Medical Center is tremendous. And I am thrilled to hang out with them from time to time. A lot of time building services here. So, it's been a lot of fun for me as I come into town to see all the great work that's happening. We were just talking about the medical office and rehab, outpatient rehab is in the first phase of that. It's a beautiful facility. I walked in a few weeks ago. Just lots of really good stuff happening here. So thank you, Coleman.
Thank you. We appreciate that. Parts of that are exciting. Somebody who spent a good bit of their early career at Roosevelt Warm Springs, whose Aunt Liva and my granddad worked here. That part's particularly exciting. So thank you. Excuse me, it's back. No kidding. Go for that tonight. Colin, I do want to thank you for your leadership. We're so fortunate to have you and look around the room. Excuse me. And, a lot of people have given their lives to Wellstar, West Georgia, in our healthcare community. You didn't adopt. Water.
I can read it.
So our next program. Man, I've been gone too long. Yeah. So our upcoming program is May 22nd, Mike Raymer is with the Georgia Council on Economic Education. May 29th is Colonel Michael Kent. His experience in special forces. June 5th is Patrick Bowie, who is with the state of the city. And then June 12th is going to be
Spoken like a future president.